I never thought taking my boss home that night would change everything. But when she looked at me across my kitchen table the next morning and asked that question, my entire world collapsed. Mark's voice breaks as he stares directly into the camera. What happened next wasn't just unexpected, it rewrote my entire life story. If you're moved by real stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more life-changing stories like Mark's. The rain hammered against the windshield as Mark Davidson navigated the slick roads with white knuckles. It was nearly midnight, and all he wanted was to get home to his daughter. The company holiday party had dragged on longer than expected, and though his sister had agreed to watch 8-year-old Lily, he hated imposing on her this late. Mark checked his phone at a red light, 3 missed calls from his sister. Guilt gnawed at him. Since his wife's death 2 years ago, he'd been trying desperately to be both parents to Lily while keeping his job as a senior account manager at Meridian Marketing. The balancing act was becoming increasingly impossible. The light turned green, and Mark was about to accelerate when he spotted a familiar figure stumbling out of the venue's front doors. Even through the downpour, he recognized the sleek bob haircut and designer coat of Victoria Winters, Meridian's notoriously demanding CEO. Victoria was clearly intoxicated, swaying dangerously as she attempted to hail a non-existent taxi in the deserted street. Mark hesitated. Victoria was feared throughout the company for her exacting standards and ice-cold demeanor. She'd fired people for less than looking at her the wrong way. But he couldn't just leave her there, drunk and vulnerable in the pouring rain. With a resigned sigh, Mark pulled over and rolled down his window. "Ms. Winters? Do you need a ride home?" Victoria squinted through the rain, recognition slowly dawning on her face. "Davidson? Is that you?" "Yes, ma'am. Would you like me to drive you home? I don't think you'll find a taxi in this weather." She stumbled toward his car, nearly falling before grabbing the door handle. "My night in, whatever," she slurred, collapsing into the passenger seat. Mark texted his sister that he'd be even later and pulled back onto the road. "What's your address, Ms. Winters?" Victoria mumbled something unintelligible before leaning her head against the window. "Don't remember. New place. Just moved in." Mark's heart sank. "Do you have it in your phone?" She fumbled with her purse, eventually producing a sleek smartphone with a cracked screen. "Password, can't remember password." This was getting complicated. Mark drove slowly, considering his options. He couldn't just drop her at a hotel in this state, and he definitely couldn't leave her in the car all night. "Ms. Winters, I think I should take you to my place. You can sleep it off, and we'll figure out where you live in the morning. Is that okay?" Victoria's only response was a soft snore. She had passed out against the window, mascara streaking down her cheeks. In sleep, the fearsome CEO looked almost vulnerable, human in a way Mark had never seen at the office. When they arrived at his modest suburban home, Mark had to practically carry Victoria inside. His sister Jenny met them at the door, her eyes widening at the sight of his unconscious boss. "Is that Victoria Winters?" "Yes," Mark whispered. "Long story. Is Lily asleep?" Jenny nodded. "Hours ago. She wanted to wait up for you, but..." She trailed off, the unspoken criticism hanging in the air. "I know, I'm sorry. Thank you for staying so late." After Jenny left, Mark settled Victoria on the living room couch, removed her shoes, and covered her with a blanket. He placed a glass of water and some aspirin on the coffee table before retreating to check on Lily. His daughter slept peacefully, her dark curls, so like her mother's, spread across the pillow. Mark gently kissed her forehead, the familiar ache of loss mingling with his overwhelming love for her. Sarah had been gone for 2 years, but sometimes the grief felt as fresh as the day the police had come to tell him about the car accident. "I'm doing my best, baby girl," he whispered. "I promise I'm trying." Mark barely slept that night, worried about both his daughter waking up to find a stranger in their home and his boss's reaction when she realized where she was. By 6 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen to start coffee, hoping the strong brew might help Victoria's inevitable hangover. He was scrambling eggs when he heard movement behind him. Victoria stood in the doorway, looking utterly disoriented. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, her makeup smudged, but somehow she still maintained an aura of authority. "Where am I?" Her voice was raspy but controlled. "My home, Ms. Winters. You couldn't remember your address last night, so I brought you here. Coffee?" She accepted the mug he offered, studying the modest kitchen with its dated appliances and children's artwork magnetized to the refrigerator. "You have a child?" she asked, noticing a school photo of Lily. "Yes, my daughter Lily. She's 8. Victoria sipped her coffee, wincing slightly. "And your wife?" "She passed away. Car accident. It's been 2 years. Something flickered across Victoria's face, surprise, perhaps, or a hint of sympathy. "I didn't know." "No reason you would," Mark replied, sliding a plate of eggs in front of her. "Eat something. It'll help with the hangover." To his surprise, she complied without argument. They sat in awkward silence for several minutes, the only sound the scrape of forks against plates. "Thank you," Victoria finally said. "For not leaving me there last night. That was decent of you." Mark shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Most people at Meridian would have loved to see me humiliated. Or worse." Before Mark could respond, the patter of small feet announced Lily's arrival. She froze in the kitchen doorway, staring wide-eyed at the stranger at their table. "Daddy? Who's that lady?" Mark moved to his daughter's side. "This is Ms. Winters, my boss from work. She needed a place to stay last night." Lily regarded Victoria with solemn curiosity. "Did you have a bad dream?" "Sometimes when I have bad dreams, Daddy lets me sleep in his bed." Victoria's expression softened unexpectedly. "No bad dreams. Just a mistaken judgment. I'm Victoria." "I'm Lily. Do you like pancakes? Daddy makes the best pancakes on Saturdays." "I'm sure he does," Victoria replied, her voice gentler than Mark had ever heard it. "Actually, sweetheart, Ms. Winters probably needs to get home soon," Mark interjected, not wanting to impose his daughter on his clearly uncomfortable boss. But Victoria surprised him again. "I have time for pancakes, if the offer stands." And so Mark found himself making pancakes for his daughter and his boss on a rainy Saturday morning. Even more surprisingly, Victoria helped Lily set the table, listening with apparent interest as the little girl chattered about school and her upcoming holiday concert. As they ate, Mark observed this unfamiliar version of Victoria Winters, patient, almost kind, asking Lily questions and actually listening to the answers. It was as if the fearsome CEO had been replaced by a completely different person. After breakfast, Lily went to practice piano, leaving Mark and Victoria alone in the kitchen again. "You have a wonderful daughter," Victoria said, watching Lily through the doorway. "Thank you. She's everything to me." Victoria nodded, then fixed him with an intense gaze. "How do you do it, Mark? Balance everything? Being a single parent and working the hours you do at Meridian?" The question seemed genuine, not a professional assessment. "Not very well, to be honest. I'm constantly letting someone down, either Lily or the company. Most days, I feel like I'm failing at everything." Victoria was quiet for a moment, contemplating her empty coffee cup. When she looked up, her expression was unreadable. "Mark, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Victoria took a deep breath, and then asked the question that would change everything: "Would you consider being my surrogate?" Mark stared at her, certain he had misheard. "Your, what?" "My surrogate. I want a child, Mark. I've always wanted one. But I'm 43, single, and my doctors have told me carrying a pregnancy would be high risk for me due to some health issues. I've been looking into surrogacy, but finding someone I can trust has been challenging. Mark felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Of all the things Victoria Winters might have said, this was the absolute last thing he expected. Ms. Winters, I don't understand. I'm a man. I can't be a surrogate. Victoria waved her hand impatiently. Not you physically. I mean, would you and your daughter consider a surrogacy arrangement? I would pay for everything, of course, medical expenses, compensation, whatever you need. I have embryos already created with donor sperm. I just need someone to carry the baby. Mark's mind reeled. But I don't have a wife or partner. There's no woman in our household who could be your surrogate. Victoria's expression changed, confusion crossing her features. Then, horrifyingly, understanding dawned in her eyes. Oh my God, she whispered. You think I'm asking you to find a surrogate for me? Mark nodded, still bewildered. Mark, I'm asking about Lily. Your daughter. I want to know if she would be my child. The world seemed to stop. Mark couldn't breathe, couldn't think. What are you talking about? Victoria leaned forward, her voice urgent. I've been watching you struggle for years, Mark. You're an excellent employee, but you're drowning trying to be both parents to Lily. I can give her everything, the best schools, travel, opportunities you couldn't imagine. And you could still see her, of course. I'm not a monster. But she would legally be mine. Mark felt physically ill. You want to buy my daughter? Not buy her. Adopt her. Give her a better life than you can provide. And in return, I would make sure you're taken care of. A promotion, a significant raise, stock options. Financial security for life. Mark stood up so abruptly his chair crashed to the floor. Get out. Victoria looked genuinely surprised by his reaction. Mark, be reasonable. Think about what's best for Lily. What's best for Lily is her father, he said, his voice shaking with rage. Not being sold to her father's boss for a promotion. Get out of my house. Now. Victoria stood slowly, her CEO demeanor returning like armor. You're making a mistake, Davidson. I'm offering you both a better life. No, you're offering to tear apart the only family my daughter has left. Leave, or I'll call the police. After Victoria left, Mark collapsed at the kitchen table, trembling with shock and anger. How could she possibly think he would give up his daughter? For money? For a promotion? The very suggestion made him physically ill. Lily appeared in the doorway, concern on her small face. Daddy? Are you okay? Where did Ms. Victoria go? Mark forced a smile. She had to go home, sweetheart. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. By Monday morning, Mark knew his job was in jeopardy. Victoria wouldn't take his rejection lightly. He considered looking for another position immediately, but jobs at his level were scarce, and he had a mortgage and Lily's future to consider. When he arrived at the office, he was immediately summoned to Victoria's suite. Her assistant's sympathetic glance told him everything he needed to know. Victoria sat behind her massive desk, every inch the intimidating CEO again. No trace remained of the vulnerable woman in his kitchen. Davidson. Sit down. Mark remained standing. I prefer to stand, thank you. She raised an eyebrow but didn't insist. I want to apologize for my behavior on Saturday. It was inappropriate and unprofessional. This was not what Mark had expected. Yes, it was. I've been under considerable personal stress lately, which is no excuse, but perhaps explains my lapse in judgment. I would appreciate your discretion regarding the matter. Mark studied her carefully. Are you asking me to keep quiet in exchange for keeping my job? Victoria's expression hardened. I'm acknowledging a mistake and requesting professional courtesy. What happened has no bearing on your position at Meridian. Forgive me if I find that hard to believe. Victoria sighed, suddenly looking tired. Mark, I'm not going to fire you for refusing to give me your child. Even I'm not that monstrous. The blunt statement hung in the air between them. Then why am I here? Mark asked. Victoria opened a folder on her desk. To discuss your new position. I've been reviewing your work history, and it's clear you're overdue for advancement. I'm offering you the role of remote work director, effective immediately. Mark frowned. That position doesn't exist. It does now. You'll oversee our remote workforce, with a 40% salary increase and a flexible schedule that allows you to work from home 3 days a week. The position reports directly to me. Mark was speechless. This wasn't at all what he had anticipated. Why would you do this? He finally asked. Victoria closed the folder. Because you were right, and I was wrong. Lily needs her father more than she needs what I can provide. And Meridian needs employees like you, dedicated, principled, willing to stand up for what matters. This arrangement benefits everyone. Mark sat down, his legs suddenly unsteady. I don't understand. Victoria's professional mask slipped, just slightly. When my father died, I was 8, Lily's age. My mother remarried quickly, and my stepfather made it clear I was an inconvenience. By 12, I was in boarding school, and by 16, I rarely went home at all. Money and opportunity couldn't replace what I really needed. She straightened, composure returning. The offer is genuine, Mark. No strings attached. Take it or leave it. Mark took it. The new position transformed his life and Lily's. Working from home most days meant he could take her to school, attend her events, and be present in ways that had been impossible before. His increased salary allowed him to hire occasional help and even start a college fund. To his surprise, his professional relationship with Victoria improved as well. She was still demanding, still exacting, but there was a new respect between them. She never mentioned the surrogacy request again, and he honored her wish for discretion. 6 months later, Victoria invited Mark and Lily to dinner at her home, a stunning penthouse with views of the city. Mark was wary, but Victoria had kept her word about the job, and he was cautiously optimistic that her interest in Lily was now appropriate. Over dinner, Victoria was warm and engaging, drawing Lily out about school and her interests. After dessert, she asked Lily if she'd like to see the building's rooftop garden, and Mark watched from a distance as the Mark considered her words carefully. Victoria, I appreciate your honesty. But Lily isn't a solution to your personal issues. I know that now, she said quietly. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to use her to fix me. I just want the chance to be a positive presence in her life, and maybe learn from both of you about what family really means. Over the following year, Victoria gradually became a part of their lives. She attended Lily's school concerts, occasionally joined them for weekend outings, and even hosted Lily for girls' days that his daughter treasured. To Mark's surprise, Victoria revealed herself to be thoughtful, funny, and increasingly self-aware, qualities entirely hidden by her corporate persona. On the second anniversary of their strange morning-after conversation, Victoria invited Mark for coffee after work. I wanted to thank you, she said when they were seated. For what? For saying no that day. For showing. For saying no that day. For showing me what real parenting looks like. For giving me the chance to be part of something genuine instead of something I tried to buy. Mark studied her face, seeing the sincerity there. You've changed. I had to, Victoria admitted. That morning, when you reacted with such horror to my suggestion, it forced me to see myself clearly for the first time in years. I didn't like what I saw. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people pass by the cafe window. "I've been offered a position on the East Coast," Mark finally said. "CEO of a smaller firm, but the opportunity is incredible." Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "You deserve it. When do you leave?" "I haven't decided if I'm taking it. Lily has friends here, her school, her routine. And now she has you in her life too." Victoria shook her head firmly. "Don't use me as a reason to stay. Lily will thrive wherever you take her, because she has you. What about Meridian? I'd be leaving you short-staffed." "Meridian will survive," Victoria said dryly. "Though I'll miss having someone who isn't afraid to stand up to me." Mark laughed. "There's that too." As they parted ways that evening, Victoria hesitated, then hugged him briefly. "Whatever you decide, Mark, know that you've changed my life too. That morning may have shattered what you thought you knew about me, but it helped me rebuild something better." 3 weeks later, Mark accepted the position. The night before they were to leave for Boston, Victoria hosted a farewell dinner at her penthouse. She presented Lily with a locket containing a photo of the three of them at the zoo, and gave Mark an antique compass. "So you always find your way," she said simply. To their surprise, Victoria visited them in Boston several times that first year. Her relationship with Lily continued to flourish, evolving into a genuine mentorship as Lily entered her teens. For Mark, Victoria became something he never expected, a trusted friend and confidant. 5 years after that fateful morning, Mark stood in the back of a university auditorium, watching proudly as Lily delivered her high school valedictorian speech. Victoria sat beside him, discreetly wiping away tears as Lily spoke about perseverance and the family we create around us. "She mentioned you," Mark whispered as the audience applauded. Victoria nodded, too emotional to speak. Later, at the celebration dinner, Lily raised her glass in a toast. "To my dad, who taught me that love isn't about what you have, but what you're willing to give up. And to Victoria, who showed me that it's never too late to become the person you want to be." As Mark looked around the table at his daughter and the unlikely family they had created, he reflected on how a single question, one that had initially shattered his world, had ultimately led to something none of them could have imagined that rainy morning. Victoria caught his eye across the table and smiled, the unspoken understanding between them complete. Sometimes life's most devastating moments become the foundation for something unexpectedly beautiful. What matters isn't the shattering, but how you put the pieces back together. The camera focuses on Mark as he finishes his story, emotion evident in his eyes. "That morning when Victoria asked to take my daughter, I thought my life was over. I was certain I'd lose my job, maybe even my child. Instead, it became the beginning of a journey none of us expected." He smiles, the lines around his eyes crinkling. "Lily's in medical school now. Victoria is godmother to my son with my second wife. And I've learned that sometimes when your life shatters, you end up rebuilding something stronger than before." Mark looks directly into the camera. If you found meaning in my story, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real-life journeys of transformation. Sometimes the questions that break us open are the ones that ultimately set us free.